The theater was silent. Not the kind of silence that comes from boredom, but the kind of silence that bends air itself. Every eye was locked on the stage. Every breath seemed to wait for something unseen. The lights burned hot against the faces of two men, one a legend of film, the other a man who had stepped into the sandals of Christ himself. Mel Gibson, Jonathan Roumie. Two men, two stories, one stage, and in a moment no one expected. History itself seemed to split open. Jonathan's voice cut through the stillness. Not loud, not theatrical, but clear. I was praying last night, Mel, and I heard something. Something I need to tell you. Something that wasn't from me. The crowd leaned forward. Not a cough, not a whisper, just the pull of gravity toward the words hanging in the air. Mel's eyes narrowed. His jaw clenched. And for a moment, he looked like the man who had once commanded armies on screen. But this wasn't a movie. This wasn't scripted. This was raw and real. What do you mean you heard something? He asked, his voice low. Jonathan's eyes flickered with something unshakable. It wasn't confidence. It wasn't fear. It was obedience. Jesus told me to tell you this. The words were simple, but when they left his lips, the air shifted. It was as if the theater itself inhaled, as if heaven leaned close. And in that instant, Mel Gibson collapsed. What happened? Is he okay? Call someone. The stage crew rushed forward, hands shaking, eyes wide. But Jonathan didn't move. He didn't panic. He simply stood, his face pale but steady, watching the man before him crumble. Mel lay on the ground, his body rigid, his breath shallow. It wasn't exhaustion. It wasn't weakness. It was something far heavier. This isn't part of the show. Somebody help him. Oh God, what's happening? It was the perfect storm of disbelief and awe. And no one in that room knew what was about to unfold. Not the fans. Not the staff. Not even Jonathan Roumie himself. Because this collapse wasn't an accident. It wasn't random. It was the beginning of a revelation. One that would blur the line between stage and eternity. Between actor and prophet. Between the man who made the passion and the man who played the passion. Mel, can you hear me? No response. Only a shallow, ragged breath. Jonathan leaned closer, his lips trembling. I don't know why this is happening, but I know it's not the end. You were meant to hear this. We all were. And as the spotlight flickered, as the theater trembled with whispers, the world waited. Waited for the words. Waited for the revelation. Waited for the moment that would shake more than just one man. The collapse was only the beginning. The real story had not yet been told. The stage was chaos. Medics surged from the wings. Fans in the front row stood, hands pressed to their mouths. Every phone lifted into the air, recording, capturing, hoping for proof of what their eyes couldn't believe. But through the noise, through the panic, Jonathan Roumie didn't move. His hand was resting on Mel's shoulder. His eyes fixed not on the crowd, not on the medics, but somewhere higher, somewhere unseen. Clear the stage. Give him room to breathe. No, don't move him yet. The medic froze, caught between training and something he couldn't explain. Because Jonathan's voice, it carried weight. Not authority, not arrogance, but something heavier, something divine. And then Mel stirred. Not fully conscious, not fully gone. Somewhere between. His lips moved, silent at first, then louder. Not words, not sentences, just a broken, gasping sound. A cry clawing its way out of his chest. The microphone, fallen near him, caught it. And every speaker in the theater carried the sound. Raw, unfiltered. A cry that didn't sound like an actor at all. It sounded like a man haunted. No, no, not again. I can't. I can't see it again. The crowd fell silent. Every whisper choked into nothing. Because they knew. Every person in that room knew. Mel Gibson wasn't just speaking. He was reliving. The Passion of the Christ. The film that shattered cinema, that burned images into the world's collective soul. Mel had carried it, created it, bled through it. But what no one knew, what no one had ever heard, was how much of it he had never left behind. And now, here, on this stage, in front of thousands, the weight of it all returned. Mel, listen to me. This isn't the film. This isn't your burden. This is his. Mel's eyes snapped open, wild, searching. And for the first time, the fear wasn't hidden. It was naked, real. He's here. I see him. And he's not smiling. The words dropped like stone into water. Ripples of dread moved through the room. What did he mean? Was it delirium? Was it truth? Jonathan's hand tightened on his shoulder. Tell us, Mel. Tell us what you see. The lights flickered. A hum vibrated through the speakers. And Mel's voice broke into something deeper, harsher. Not just description, but confession. I hear him. The same voice I heard when I made the passion. The one that kept me awake at night. The one that told me I was unworthy. The one that showed me the cross not as art, but as judgment. Gasps rippled across the audience. People shifted uneasily in their seats. Because this wasn't the Mel Gibson they knew. Not the actor, not the director, not the man who shouted command on set. This was a man stripped bare. And Jonathan Roumie, his co-star, his friend, was the only one keeping him anchored. Listen to me, Mel. That voice is not here to condemn you. It's here to save you. It's here to finish what was started. For the first time, Mel stopped thrashing. His chest rose and fell in shuddering breaths. The medics watched, frozen in disbelief. The audience leaned forward, caught between terror and awe. Something larger than theater was unfolding. And everyone knew it. Because the collapse wasn't random. The vision wasn't hallucination. It was confrontation. A reckoning. Between Mel Gibson and the very Jesus he had tried to portray to the world. And as Jonathan whispered into his ear, as Mel's tears fell onto the stage, a truth began to surface. One that would change not only their lives, but the lives of everyone watching. The conflict wasn't between two men. It was between one man and eternity. The stage had become a battlefield, not of flesh and blood, but of spirit and soul. One man lay trembling, haunted by visions no one else could see. Another stood firm, steady, as though he had been placed there for this very moment. Mel Gibson, Jonathan Roumie, and a silence that felt alive. Mel, listen. Don't look at the fear. Look at him. He's not here to destroy you. He's here to call you back. Mel's eyes flickered, darting toward the ceiling as though following something invisible. Tears streaked down his face. His lips moved again, this time words, clear, broken. I see him, crowned, but not with gold. With thorns. His eyes. Jonathan, his eyes. They burn through me. They see everything. Every sin. Every choice. And I can't hide. The crowd sat frozen, as if the air itself had locked them in place. No one coughed. No one whispered. Even the medics, men trained for emergencies, stood motionless, captivated. Because this wasn't medicine. This wasn't stagecraft. This was revelation. Then don't hide, Mel. Give it to him. That's why he's here. Not to accuse you. To free you. Mel's body shook harder, as though torn between surrender and resistance. The microphone, still lying inches from his face, caught every raw sob, every broken word. And then, he cried out. Why me? Why now? I'm not holy. I'm not a priest. I'm not. His voice cracked. His fists pounded the stage. I'm not worthy. The theater quaked with the sound. The confession was no longer his alone. It was every man's. Every woman's. Every soul who had ever felt the weight of their sin pressed down like stone. And in that raw eruption, something shifted. Jonathan dropped to his knees beside him. His hand gripped Mel's, holding it tightly, refusing to let go. None of us are worthy. That's the point, Mel. That's the truth. That's why he came. That's why he died. And that's why he's speaking now. The words slammed into the silence like thunder. And for the first time, Mel stopped resisting. His body went still. His sobs softened into quiet gasps. And then he whispered. Then what did he say to you? What did Jesus tell you to tell me? The moment had come. The very words that had started this firestorm. The words Jonathan had carried like a burden. The words he had feared and prayed over and finally released. Jonathan leaned close. The theater leaned closer. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. He told me. Tell Mel I saw him. I saw the nights he wrestled with me. I saw the price he paid when the world mocked him for telling my story. I saw the guilt he carried for his failures. And I want him to know. I forgave him long before he asked. The words hung there. Not poetic. Not rehearsed. Simple. Devastating. Beautiful. And Mel Gibson, the man who had carried decades of shame, regret, and fear, broke. He wept. Not the quiet tears of a man hiding in the dark, but the uncontrollable sobs of a soul finally released. He forgave me. After everything. After the rage, the mistakes, the sins I can't even name. Yes, Mel. After all of it. Because he paid for it. And he's telling you. Right now. It's finished. The stage lights dimmed as though in reverence. The audience, shaken, many in tears, could no longer contain themselves. Whispers became prayers. Gasps became cries. And in that crowded theater, something holy fell like rain. Mel's collapse wasn't an accident. It was an altar. And on that altar, a man who had once brought Christ's passion to the world, finally encountered Christ's passion to the world, finally encountered Christ's passion for him. The climax wasn't a scene. It wasn't a performance. It was real, and it left every soul in the room changed. The storm had broken. The collapse, the panic, the cries. All of it had given way to something else. Something deeper. Silence. Not the silence of fear. The silence of reverence. The silence that comes when heaven itself seems to draw near. On the stage, Mel Gibson sat upright now, his face wet with tears. Jonathan Roumie's hand never left his shoulder. They weren't actor and actor anymore. Not director and performer. Not celebrity and co-star. They were just men. Men before God. All these years, I carried it. The guilt. The shame. I thought it was mine to bear forever. You never had to, Mel. That's what he was telling you tonight. That's what the cross was always about. Mel's chest shook as another sob slipped free. But this one was different. Not the sob of torment. The sob of release. And as the audience watched, something remarkable happened. It wasn't just Mel being freed. It was them. One by one, across the packed theater, strangers began to cry. Some clasped their hands together, whispering prayers. Others bowed their heads, trembling. The collapse had become a call. The revelation had become a mirror. If he forgave him, maybe he can forgive me too. And just like that, what began as a spectacle had become a sanctuary. The theater had turned into a place of worship. Not by design, not by script, but by divine interruption. You've seen it tonight. This isn't about fame. It isn't about Hollywood. It isn't about us. It's about him. And he's still speaking. He's still forgiving. He's still calling. Every word sank deep. Every word landed like seed in soil. And in the hush that followed, the weight of eternity pressed close. Mel lifted his face, eyes red but alive in a way no one had seen before. Then I need to say it. Not as a director. Not as a star. Just as a man. He turned toward the crowd. His voice cracked but carried. I'm not proud of my past. I've failed. I've hurt people. I've lived with regret. But if what Jonathan said is true, if Jesus really said he forgave me, then I can't hide from that. I can only surrender to it. The words struck like lightning. Not rehearsed. Not polished. Real. And that reality was more powerful than any script ever written. The audience erupted. Not with applause. With weeping. With prayer. With cries to the same Jesus who had just reached into one man's brokenness and pulled him out. Then it's finished, Mel. Just like he said. It's finished. And in that moment, the collapse wasn't tragedy. It wasn't weakness. It was redemption. The man who had carried the story of Christ's suffering to the screen had finally found freedom in Christ's suffering for himself. And those who witnessed it would never forget, because they hadn't just watched a collapse. They had seen a resurrection. When the lights dimmed that night, when the stage emptied, when the cameras stopped rolling, the story didn't end. It followed every person out the doors. It echoed in their minds. It stirred in their hearts. And it left one haunting, hopeful question behind. If Jesus could break through to him, could he break through to you?